Welcome to the Hoopstrology podcast, brought to you by the Valle Citian. My name is Jesus Acevedo Jr.
And this is Zodiac GM.
And we thank you for listening to us on Thanksgiving week 2023. We're a young podcast, and we appreciate every listener that we have gotten so far on our 6th episode, Zodiac. We've talked about other modalities of Zodiac, so I think by now, we can start focusing on each individual signs. And at first, I thought about starting with Aries because they're the first sign, right, of the Zodiac wheel. But I'm going to start at the end with Pisces, and the reason why I start with Pisces is because it's going to relate to wherever I'm going to transition next. But Pisces, what can you tell us about Pisces? They're the last sign of the Zodiac. And I read this. I don't know. You can confirm if it's true. You are Zodiac GM. Do Pisces, because they're the last sign, have a little bit of every other sign in them?
Interesting. Yes. Since they are the 12th sign, they're considered the elders of the zodiac. So they're like the most mature, right? In Aries, since they're the first, they're the youngest. But typically, the Pisces are a mutable sign, right? So it's a water. They're all about emotion. So yes, they do have a trait of each and every sign of the zodiac, them being the 12th sign. So think of them as sort of like the psychics, right? So they get a sense and a feel, and they have great intuition about the energies and emotions around them. So the thing with Pisces, they try to fit in with other people's energies, right? And other people's emotions. They try to get a sense of how you're feeling and where you're at, and then they try to go along with it. Think of it as a wave, right? So they go with the flow, them being a mutable sign. So you do have you're right about what you read, and that's the typical trait of a Pisces. And they do get dubbed as being wishy-washy, but that's only because they're trying to get a feel of what other people's are around them. So some people, they can't figure them out. Think of it like trying to catch a fish. You can't really grab a fish on first hand. It's like you grab a fish and they slip out. You grab a fish, slip out, because you can't really get a hold of how or where a Pisces is at. So they're dubbed as being wishy-washy, but there's a reason for that. It's because they're trying to fit in and blend in. And they are a mutable sign, a water sign. So yes.
And as far as their traits, what are some of the traits that maybe you can correlate to some of the most famous Pisces NBA players?
Oh, okay. So the thing with Pisces, they are the most ambitious zodiac sign. Okay, a famous Pisces, a really good one at that, is Steph Curry. Okay, Steph Curry is one of he is a Pisces. Draymond Green's a Pisces. So these are the energies that are probably the most ambition, to a level where others people will look at them and are like, man, you're way too ambitious. But the thing is, their ambitious is so big that they're even believe it to make it happen. So if Steph Curry wants to say, I want to win 10 championships, and other people are like, man, there's no way you're gonna win 10 championships. But you know what? He's making it happen, because he has such that drive in him. And that's just a typical trait of a Piscean, so yeah. So
It's almost like
that
if they believe it so much, they're manifesting it, right? If you believe in
exactly.
that.
There you go. You're right.
You know,
And they are a
and,
very
and
powerful sign too.
and it's funny that you mentioned Draymond Green, because that's actually where I want to hit the topic is Draymond Green. I know his accident with Rudy Gobert happened last week, but we haven't had a chance to talk about it, and I want to talk about it. And look, let me start off by saying, look, I like Draymond Green. All right, let me just get that out the way. I like Draymond Green. I like what he brings on the court. Sometimes he crosses the line, and this is one of those moments where he jumped the line. He didn't just cross it, take a step. He jumped the line, right? So clearly, right, and he deserves a suspension. It probably should have been more. I mean, it's a repeated action that he has done over and over. But I think what I found interesting is what Rudy Gobert said, is that his assertion that Green looks to be ejected when Curry isn't playing, right? And they've gone back and seen, so 7 of Green's last 11 ejections have come when Curry didn't play. So I thought that was a very interesting point as to why, not why, right? But pairing to Rudy Gobert's words. But what I want to ask you, so Draymond Green, you told us he's a Pisces. What is his moon sign? And do you think maybe that has something to do with the way that he's perceived, the way he plays, the way he kind of pushes those buttons? Because not all Pisces are like that.
Exactly. So, as I mentioned before, just because you're a Pisces doesn't mean you're a Pisces strictly depending on whatever traits. You also got to look at the whole birth chart. The thing with Draymond Green, he is a Pisces. I mean, he is a moon sign of a Gemini. Okay, so there you
What?
go, a
There you go. That
Gemini.
explains it
So,
all. That explains it all.
so that's the reason why. The thing with the Gemini is they tend to kind of be a little bit open. They say what's on their mind without even second guessing or second. They just say whatever it is and they blurt it out. And sometimes, it's probably best to not even say it at all, but that's just the way Gemini moons work, right? Another Gemini moon.
Speaking as a Gemini, sometimes when you're saying it, you're like, I've already said it. I can't take it back. Because that's how quick it
Exactly.
happens.
Exactly, and that's what you're getting from Draymond Green. He is a double mutable sign. Okay, a Pisces is a mutable water, and a Gemini is a mutable air. So he has a mutable sense nature of him. So he goes with the flow in different sense of emotion, communication, ideas. So the thing with his combination is like you can go to Draymond Green if you need any ideas for whatever project it is. He'll just come up with it with something on the dot, and he'll make it happen. That's just the way they are. They're very witty, they're very smart, they're very clever, and that's him. And his most compatible sign is, of course, Pisces as well. Mutable,
Hmm.
mutable works very well together. And who guess who the other Pisces is? Steph Curry, right? So they work very well together. Their synergy is like elite, and it goes to show how where they actually came up to. I mean, winning all these championships. A lot of people would say Clay Thompson is is the synergy for the best synergy for Steph Curry. Actually, is Draymond Green. And as you can tell, whenever Draymond Green is playing, their whole offense just kind of out of whack, right? Even though Clay Thompson is one of the best shooters in the league, but when
Right.
Steph and Draymond Green plays together, they have a really, really good chemistry together, and that goes to show for the rest of the team because that's their primary focus for their offense. With Draymond running a lot of that offense as well, with Steph helping out. So
And it's pretty interesting that you mentioned that because it took David Lee getting hurt for Draymond Green to get the starting spot, right? He was coming off the bench. I'm not sure what sign David Lee was, the power forward, who's a good player by his own right, but just not the type of player that team needed at that moment. And look, once they started Draymond Green, that's when they really started on this little, you know, dynasty that they created for themselves. I don't know if
right.
you know David Lee's sign
Well,
off the
David
bat and see how.
Lee, David Lee is a Libra, but the thing you got to consider, I mean, once Steve Kerr, became a coach, Steve Kerr is also a Libra. But the thing with the Libras, they, whoever's listening that is a Libra, y'all probably might get an understanding of this. Like the thing with Libras, they're great initiator of ideas, right? And they like to build connection. So they want to have a good connection with other players or to make things work, right? So the idea that he initiated was, let me go ahead and see what happens when we bring in Draymond Green, right? So that's kind of like the mentality of a Libra. They like to initiate ideas and they move forward with that idea and then they see how it goes. So typically a lot of people at that time probably didn't even consider Draymond Green starting, right? They probably even looked at it as like, why is he starting Draymond Green? Why is he moving David? Because David Lee was like a was like an all
Uh,
star, right? I
All
mean, he
Star,
was like
yeah,
one of those.
yeah,
Yeah. So, and then Andre, Iguodala was another. When he got moved to the bench. I mean, so
yeah,
these are like ideas that came from Steve Kerr, and of course, it panned out and it worked out really well for him. So, yeah, that's what you're getting.
yeah. It's what's Draymond Green. He should be coming back later this week. He had a 5-game suspension, but it makes total sense. It's a Gemini now, moon sign Gemini. He's definitely a talker, likes to talk trash. He has a podcast of his own. He's
Oh, for
he
you
does.
Geminis out there, podcast is a Gemini thing. Okay, so yeah, and Draymond, I believe Draymond does have a podcast, right?
Yeah, he does have a podcast on
Oh,
the
okay.
volume, Colin Cowherd's network. So, but yeah, so Draymond Green, not bad for for uh for Draymond Green, Moon Gemini. Now, see, and maybe that's the reason why I do like him. But but you know who likes him? His hometown, Saginaw, Michigan. I'm sure they're pretty proud. He played at Michigan State. And we're gonna stay in Michigan, Zodiac, because I want to talk about the Detroit Pistons. Now, the Detroit Pistons, I kind of want to talk about them because you told me preseason that this team
Yes,
had good chemistry.
exactly.
Good Zodiac chemistry, and look, they have talent, a talented team, right? Kate Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, um, um, I'm blacking out on the other forward, but yeah, they have a
Bogdanovic,
good young team.
Stewart,
There you
Wiseman,
go.
Cunningham,
There you go. Weissman is the one I was
Thompson.
talking about. Yeah. So it's a team that has young talent, and I saw them as the same trajectory as the Houston Rockets, right? They both made that first two picks around the same 3 years ago, right? They had Kate Cunningham, Rockets guy Jalen Green, and it's so weird to see how both those teams have their trajectory now. Detroit Pistons have are 2-13 to start the season, and they just recently lost by 2 points. But before that, they were 4-36 in their last 40 regular season games. Four
Wow.
and 36 in their
Yes.
last 40 regular season games. That is just devastating for a franchise
Yes.
fan base, anybody to take. And what? So my question is, if there's sort of chemistry, is it just they're not using the right lineup, or is it the coach, the
Well,
assistant coach, Steven Silas is there? We know how that went here in Houston.
you're right. You're right. So whenever I analyze this team, I look for the best potential and assumption of what their projected lineup is going to be before the season started. So initially, I did have Wiseman starting because I felt, I mean, as far as for potential goes, having Wiseman as a starter instead of Duran benefits their synergy a lot more because Duran is the outcast. He is a very talented player, and I know a lot of people vouch for him being a starter, of course, and he has shown it. His numbers look great. But as far as for synergy goes, it doesn't benefit a player like Cunningham or a player like Ivy, right? Another thing I noticed is that I had also put Bojanovic because Bojanovic he's either injured or hasn't played that much this season, and he is a veteran. Of course, with a young team, having that veteran presence helps out as well. So two things: one, Jalen's Duran starting as center. He is the outcast, and you combine him with a lot of with the young core, also doesn't help as much, right? Now,
When you say
Killian
outcast, what do
Hayes,
you mean? When you say
outcast
outcast,
meaning that okay, out of their starting five, there's four compatible energies that work
okay.
very well together, right? And when I say outcast, that means the fifth person, which is Duran, he's the outcast. So his energy doesn't fit with the rest of the team. Now, even though a 4-1 lineup would typically work, but the way the rotation is and the way their positions are doesn't doesn't fit this team. Of course, you got to look at the coach and then the way offense is being run. There's so much more to it, right? But typically, this team does have the potential to have good chemistry. Now, it may not always translate to wins because one, they are young, but as far as for chemistry goes, they do have the potential. But the optimal lineup hasn't been really used yet. Now, I think Jalen Duren got injured recently, and they had rotated their center position. I think Bagley moved up to a starter. Now Bagley, he is a Pisces, right? Which is also another. He's also an outcast for the rest of the squad. Now, when I mention the rest of the squad, Cunningham, he's a Libra, air sign. I know they recently put Ivy to the starting lineup, which they should have kept as a starter to begin with. Now Cunningham and Ivy works very well together, but the most compatible energy to Ivy is actually Wiseman. And that's kind of the
Mhm.
reason why I felt why they should start Wiseman instead of Durham. But that's just my opinion, right? And having Ivy that guard to big man duo was very compatible, works very well, and I think it works. The reason why I think it works very well is because the way their players are constructed. Cunningham, he's sort of that combo type guard, who's a good mid range shooter, and then they have Asar Thompson, who's come out to be like an elite defender. It seems like, and they have the Gemini in Stu, right?
Mm.
Stewart. He's a Gemini, so he's sort of like the Draymond Green in a sense, but he fits well in that lineup. So that was kind of the lineup that I had envisioned them using, but of course they hadn't because they've put Killian Hayes a starter over Ivy, and then also put Duran as starter over Wiseman. But again, that's just my opinion. That's just the way I see it. But it doesn't show as wins. I mean, they're 10 losses in a row hurts. So
And,
that's
and
the
it's
team.
The players are definitely feeling it. Before the most recent game, Kate Cunningham says that these Detroit Pistons, this is quote, we got to be realistic about the situation. It's hard to just be like, we're good, we're good. You know what I'm saying? Because we're bad. We have to address that. We have to address what we're not good at. Address it with not only our words but on the court and the huddles. End quote. So it's they see it, they feel it that they're not doing well, and I think it's also because like I said, this is Kate Cunningham's third year, right? There's people here in Houston upset about Jalen Green's progression in his third year, and we can
Ooh, I
get into
gotta
that
tell you something about that too.
we can get into that on some other topic on the
I
on the next
got you. I
episode.
got you.
But yeah, so Kate Cunningham is looking at this third year like every year is the same thing. It's and you could even argue that this year is even worse because you should have gotten better, right? You got a first year head coach. How does his sign fit into this?
And that was also another thing. Monty Williams, he's a Libra, fits very well with the rest of the lineup, right? I mean, his most compatible energy is the Killian Hayes, Jaden Ivey, Stu, Osor Thompson. I mean, they're all compatible. That's kind of reason why when I analyze the team, I'm like, wow, this team has all the energies to make it work. The potential is there. But also another way I look at it is like maybe Monte Williams not a good coach after all. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's not ready to coach a young team like this. I think he's more suited for a more veteran team, right? But it is what it is. The record show. Oh, or maybe they're just wanting to tank. I mean, who knows, right? Who knows? But their record is definitely not showing up for it, and that's where they're at right now. So
That's where they're at right now.
And 6 episodes in, 12 games into the season, I'm already going to start bragging about one of my picks that we made in one of our first
all right.
episodes because the Oklahoma City Thunder are just really turning heads. They just beat the Golden State Warriors with the great finish. Shed Holmgren showing what he can do down the stretch. They're 10-4, won 5 in a row, and the team is just clicking. A young team at that. Shea Gillis Alexander. I hope to God I'm saying his name right. He's
Gilgis
a baller.
Alexander.
Gillis Alexander. There you go. He's a baller.
Yeah.
He is a baller, and before I picked this team, there was just something about the way this team had been built throughout the years, and the way that this team, the front office is run. And I look at teams. The Houston Rockets were also on that same list where they were both kind of rebuilding at the same time, and OKC is just that team where I think they could make a playoff run. Maybe not a deep one, but I think they could make maybe a second round. So just can you remind us and the listening audience, what are the signs driving the Oklahoma City Thunder this season?
Well, big props to you, first of all, because that call was on point for you. The OKC Thunder, they have actually the biggest point differential in the Western Conference, 8.8 points a game difference from offense to their defense. So, what makes them great? So, they are a young team, yes. Okay. So, but the key thing here is Chet Holmgren. It's unbelievable. He's playing unbelievable, right? So, he is a Taurus fixed sign. Now, his most compatible energy on that starting unit is guess who?
Shea.
SGA, who is a
There you
Cancer.
go.
So
Oh wow.
that's a big plus. That's a big plus. Now, on top of that, the other three that they have on their lineup is they have three other cardinal signs that are on their lineup. They have Dort, he's an Aries cardinal. Jalen Williams, a small forward, who's an Aries cardinal, and they also have Josh Giddey, who is a Libra cardinal. And back to what I mentioned before, whenever you have a cardinal sign, the quality that fits them well, very well, it's another compatible element that is a fixed sign. So guess who the fixed sign is? Coach,
Who?
their coach. He is a Leo.
Ooh.
Now, coach, I hope I'm saying his name right. Dagnall. Now he is a Leo. So when you have a Leo fixed sign, you have all your cardinal signs that listens very well, and they're also on the same page because there are compatible elements. On top of that, you also have SGA and Chet Holmgren that are extremely compatible. You combine them as a whole unit. And the way they utilize their system works very well, and it shows on their record.
it's. I thought Chet Holmgren's offensive game was gonna transition slowly to the NBA. I thought his defense was gonna be ahead, but he shows flashes a lot in this 5 game winning streak, right? Not just flashes, like
Yeah.
he's taking over some games. I mean, that shot he hit to send the game to overtime and at Golden State, that turnaround. I swear I've made a shot like that once or twice in my life. I don't know, something about turning around that way for tall, lanky guys. But yes, it's showing, and it's Shea Alexander could get MVP consideration so far this season, right? I think that's fair to
30
say.
points a game. Yeah, definitely.
And it seems like it's so effortless. Like you see him in the fourth quarter, and he's not even breathing deep. Like he's just calm, cool, collected. I'm like, he kind of reminds me of Tracy McGrady in that way, where you look up, Tracy McGrady had 33 points. You're like, what? Like he just did it so nonchalant, just smoothly, just like at his own pace.
Yeah, and it fits well because he has a big man that has extremely compatibility to him, which is Chet Holmgren, and him being a guard works very well. But the thing to consider for all the Taurians out there, Taurians are one of the most consistent signs in the whole zodiac. And if you know some of the Taurians, like the Chris Paul, the Paul George, they have that level of consistency where they stay at one tone. So expect to see this from Chet Holmgren throughout his career, even because this is what he's showing and this is what he brings, and it's consistent. It's not too flashy, consistent. Another very, very good Tauran is Tim Duncan. So I mean, that just goes to
Interesting.
show. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I've been impressed by the coach, and I'm gonna butcher his name. Oh my God, the coach is that's a that's a very unique one. Which I love unique names, right?
Diagonal. Hmm.
Mark Dana, So I like his coaching so far this early season, because you never know how first time coaches are going to do, right? Sorry, for first time, but he's been a coach since 2020. But I mean, he's kind of learned this team, and he's been with this team. He's kind of grown with this team because they got SGA only a couple years ago, right? I think this is his fourth
Yeah,
year or third year with the Thunder.
exactly. And what's up with all these Leos, by the way? I mean, Ime Udoka, Dagnall, you have Nick Nurse, you have Coach Bud. They're all Leos. I mean, that just goes to show, hey, that might be a good coaching zodiac sign for any team. So yeah, that's
Well,
interesting.
Leos are the natural leaders, right? They are, the lion is their sign. So we've all seen them Lion King. So,
Exactly.
but one team that's also just had a couple big wins was the Charlotte Hornets. Now, you wanted to speak about the Hornets specifically because they made a change to their lineup, and how did that lineup help them in today's game, and how you saw it?
Well, so before the season started, the way I analyze them is just through looking at a sheet of paper and just based on their zodiac signs, right? So I had graded them really high on their synergy, right? But whenever they started the season, they ended up picking up PJ Washington, which in my mind, in my opinion, I was like, well, I don't think it's a good pickup because it doesn't really mesh well with the rest of the starting unit or projected starting unit, right? So they also were starting Terry Rozier, who is a Pisces. Now PJ Washington is a Virgo, and then Terry Rozier is a Pisces. But the thing is, the team for the Hornets, they are dominant in earth. I mean, I'm sorry, they are dominant in fire and air signs, which means they have a lot of fire signs. Actually, their projected starting lineup that what I saw would make a good synergy are all fire signs, right? And today, for the first time all season, they use that. And that consists of Mark Williams, who's a Sagittarius mutable sign, not Mikhail, Miles Bridges, who is an Aries, Brandon Miller, who is a Sagittarius, Gordon Hayward, who is an Aries, and also LaMelo Ball, who is a Leo. Now, keep in mind, those five are all compatible and they are all fire signs. So
Hmm,
that's a strong unit right there. Not only that, they ended up playing the Boston Celtics today, and they ended up beating them. And Boston
interesting.
Celtics is one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. So, of course, that doesn't show on their record, but them using that as this lineup, it kind of gives you a hint of what could be the potential. But keep in mind, they still are a young team. So let's see how it goes moving forward from here on out. But I projected them to be very, very good within 1 to 3 years. It might take some time because they are young, but the help of veterans like Gordon Hayward, even Bridges himself, it could help out and from them moving forward.
So did the move swing them one way to another, from one duality to another, to one strength to another, or is it
Yes,
just now more
because
balance?
right now it's full favor of Lamelo's balls. This is the team that he fits him very well. Now, before this lineup that they utilized today were all fiber compatible. They had utilized what was like, I call it a 3-2, where only three were compatible and the other two weren't. And the two I mentioned earlier was Terry Rozier and PJ Washington, right? So them being in a starting unit, along with LaMelo Ball, Gordon Hayward, and Mark Williams, kind of threw off their balance and synergy in a way, because you have two different dualities of compatible elements that are opposite of each other. You're kind of like battling to find that synergy. But now, unfortunately, with Terry Rozier, I believe he's injured, and I think they ended up moving Bridges up and then move PJ Washington down to the bench unit. That's a good move for them. So this is a team to keep an eye out for. And they do have a lot of talent, and their chemistry on the Zodiac sense is really, really good. So we'll see how that goes. It could be now or it could be within 1 to 3 years, but I do see them, standing out in the near future.
I mean, look, Brandon Miller, it has to be said, he's had a good showing so far as a rookie. He's shown his nice shooting touch, so that's definitely a boon to the Charlotte Hornets. But as you said, if this move is going to help them out, maybe he may not shine as much. But granted, one game it's few to talk about, right? I mean, he only had 9 points against the Celtics. He did have 7 rebounds and 4 assists. So he did help in other ways, right? So this is also about maybe him finding his role, if this is going to be the new starting lineup or the new most used lineup. And look, like I said, Terry got hurt, so maybe they don't even attempt to go this route until they're put in that situation. So sometimes these kind of things just have to play out and let fate take care of it somehow, somewhere. Maybe Terry comes back and he comes off the bench, and maybe that even helps him out even further. How will Terry come off the bench work with his sign?
Yeah, I think that's better for him to come off the bench. That's in my opinion, because this being a young team, it helps for them to have all these compatible energies, especially that someone to help LaMelo Ball out. So yeah, so this is going to be a strong synergy team moving forward. So we'll see.
We'll see. And the coach, how does the coach, who I'm a fan of, Steve Clipper, just because he's from the Jeff Van Gundy tree, so I like a good hard-nosed defender. But yeah,
Well,
so how does go ahead.
their starting unit is actually opposite of Clifford, because
Wow.
Clifford is a Virgo. So that's also another thing. In the back of my mind, the way I see it, and this is only my opinion, I feel like if they do get another coach that's compatible to their starting unit, would be helpful, especially for a young team. But he is a Virgo. They are mutable signs, and they'll find a way to make this team work. So yeah.
It's interesting. This is Steve Clipper's second run with Charlotte
Exactly.
Hornets, right? He was there back when they were still the Bobcats, from 2013 to 2018. He
Yeah.
came back in 2022. So, it's interesting you mentioned that. I wouldn't be surprised, and if he's one of those coaches that is on the chopping block, say, in a couple months from now, right? Which
Honestly,
that
I kind of do see that, unfortunately. I would hate to say that about any coach or player, but I mean, he just doesn't fit a starting unit, especially the stars that you have with LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller moving forward. But the guy I'm thinking of was the guy that the Rockets were thinking of hiring. I can't remember his name. He's the coach of Brooklyn Nets. He's a Gemini. Um, but
yes, Kenny
Kenny Atkinson. I
Kenny
think he would
Atkinson.
be a great coach, because Kenny Atkinson's a Gemini with an Aries moon. He would fit this team very well. So,
Interesting.
that's just my opinion. So we'll see.
Where is Kenny? I'm surprised he doesn't. Oh, he's an
I think
assistant with
he's
the
in
Golden State
Golden State.
Warriors.
Yeah. I
Actually,
think
didn't he accept a job and then he took it back?
exactly. And I
Yes,
think I want to say it
it
was
was
probably
Charlie
the
Hornets.
Hornets,
Yes,
but
it
he
was.
fits
Oh my
that
god.
team very well. Now with them having Brandon Miller, he fits that team very well.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, we're gonna put that up there. A prediction: Kenny Atkinson to the Charlotte Hornets. You heard it here on Hoopstrology podcast first.
And that was our last topic on this Thanksgiving week 2023 episode of the Hoopstrology podcast. Actually, just Hoopstrology. I don't need to say podcast every single time. So Hoopstrology. Zodiac, what do you have to be thankful for on this 2023?
Thankful for many things: family, good health, and life in general.
Life in general. I feel the same, held to all my family and friends. I'm always thankful for that. I'm thankful to start another podcast, especially one with you. I've known you a long time, so I'm sure you feel the same way. Even if you don't say it, but I know you feel it.
Feel the energy's there.
You feel the energy is there. But thank you, listeners, once again for coming to listen to us. Don't forget to subscribe. See you.